Welcome, welcome. And for some of you whose names I recognize, welcome back. Good to see you. Good to see you. Please take a moment and type your full first and last name in the chat and where you're from. You can follow Kathy's excellent example. And then that way we will have that logistic out of the way and we can have that extra few minutes for our time together. I'm going to oh my God, I love seeing these familiar faces from whom I saw yesterday. Fantastic. Welcome. Welcome back. Excellent. So we'll give it just another moment or two, and then we will officially get started. I do have something that I'd like you to be thinking about. And if you want, you can write it down on a little piece of scrap paper, or if you're very good with like remembering things in your head, or if you're more phone or computer focused, you can make a little note to yourself that way. But what I'm going to ask you to consider, and I'll repeat this when if any other people join us, but what I'm going to ask you to consider is what would you consider a personal value that you have? A personal, and I'm just asking you to think about that right now. I'm not asking you to put anything in the chat. I'm not asking you to unmute and say anything about it at this particular moment. But what I'm going to ask everybody to be thinking about is what is a particular value that's important or relevant for you personally? So just a value that is important or relevant. Yeah, and Lauren, thank you. That's great. You don't have to put anything in the chat yet. And Lauren, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm wondering if you would be willing, Lauren, since you did put that in the chat, when we start, would it be okay if I invited you to unmute and say a little about that? That would be okay? If you change your mind by the time we get there, feel free to say pass. I don't want to say anything about it. But thank you. So I'll check in with you when we get to that point, Lauren. So thank you. Thanks. And Dr. Chandri, I see that you've also put something in the chat too. Fantastic. We're going to get a chance, hopefully, to have a little bit of time to talk about that. It's very relevant to our topic, our conversation today. So that's really why I wanted to start there. Very briefly, I will say by way of introduction, and the most important thing that I'll say in terms of introduction is welcome. Welcome to the learning community and welcome back to the learning community for a number of you. My name is Paul, and I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to facilitate this learning community conversation focused on what was formerly known as developing discrepancy, now known as planting seeds, as a conversational strategy that you can actually use if a conversation starts to feel stuck or circular. Okay? So that is going to be our topic. And the only other thing I'll just say briefly by way of introduction is I'm a social worker by training. I'm a graduate of Hunter College School of Social Work in Manhattan. And I started my direct service career. Hello, Dawn. Thanks for joining us. I started my social service career in 1991, providing direct care to people living with HIV and AIDS. And I did that until 2003, when I made the intentional choice of transitioning into substance use workforce development. So having the opportunity to work with folks who are working with folks who are maybe having difficulties with substance or may have a substance use disorder diagnosis. So that was the transition that I made in 2003. I am now going to share my screen. We'll take care of a couple of logistical details. And what I would ask, as I often do, is if there are a couple of people who would be willing to verbally unmute and just say, yes, I can see the slide when I project it. And if the rest of you would be willing to just type the letter Y in the chat, if you can actually see the slide when I'm projecting it. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. So I am going to share my screen now. So I think that there's an important thing I need to disclose. There are a couple of disclosures that I want to make, but an important thing I want to disclose in regard to this particular topic. Developing discrepancy is a way to move forward, again, now known and referred to in Bill Miller, Dr. William Miller, and Stephen Rolnick's fourth edition of their book, Motivational Interviewing, Helping People Change and Grow. That's the new title of the book. They added grow. And the important point I want to disclose in regard to that is this particular strategy of developing discrepancy is not exclusive to the evidence-based practice of motivational interviewing. It is a strategy that can be used simply as a way to facilitate conversation and reflection on that conversation. So please be very clear that I'm not necessarily presenting this within the frame of the evidence-based practice of motivational interviewing. And what I can say, generally speaking, is that whenever I'm talking about any conversational strategies, I'm always talking about them within the practice structure of an am I consistent, am I spirited approach, which of course is not the practice of motivational interviewing. It's the way of being while we're interacting with somebody, also not exclusive to motivational interviewing. My hope is that this will be a conversation between us. I have to say, yesterday we finished part 2 of a 2-part series, and some of the people that are in the learning community today were there. And I just have to say, I've been thinking about it ever since we concluded that, because it was such a valuable, to me, I'm making an I statement here, and open and honest conversation. And I was very inspired by it. So my hope is that we will be able to have a conversation. And as we do that, let us intentionally choose to use language that is welcoming, respectful, and inclusive of everybody that's in our learning community. And because we are a learning community, it is perfectly okay for us to talk about what is relevant to us and our work. That may not necessarily reflect the official position of our funders, and that's okay. Because what's more important is that what we talk about supports what you're doing, helps you to interact with your patients, clients, consumers, participants in a way that feels effective and efficient to you. A couple of additional things to consider. This is the last time I'll say it. If you have not yet typed your full name and where you're from in the chat, please take a moment and do that. If you're sharing your computer with anybody, please do type their full name and where they're from in the chat. There is no session tomorrow. So what I will ask you to do is to complete the evaluation, the brief evaluation for today. And I'm going to make a concerted effort. Sometimes I fail, but I'm going to make a concerted effort to leave a couple of moments for you to do that survey. It's brief, so that you can then go on to your next appointment on time. And again, this is a very brief conversation. I would ask, if you're able to, if it works for your particular learning style and your particular circumstances, please do turn on your camera and be on camera for the full hour. If for whatever reason you are not going to be on camera, and that's okay, I'm just glad you're here, just send me a direct message, and direct to me. You don't have to share it with anybody else, but just send me a direct message and let me know you're not going to be on camera. And again, that's perfectly okay. I'm just glad that you're here. I would ask, there are, I believe now, let me see how many of us there are. There are 40 of us, which is fantastic. I would ask, until or unless you have something you want to say, ask, or offer, if you wouldn't mind remaining muted, that way we won't have background noise interference. You can interrupt me at any point. If I'm in the middle of saying something and you have a thought, you want to add something, you want to ask a question, don't hesitate to interrupt me. I will ask, though, is if our colleague Sumara has the floor and she's making her point, please don't interrupt her or anybody else in the learning community. Let's give them the respect of being in a supportive learning community and listening to what they say, giving them the space to finish their point. And that goes for Sumara and everybody else in the learning community. So again, interrupt me, please don't interrupt each other. And then the last guideline, before I take this down briefly and ask for you to commit to these guidelines, is if you would be intentional and open to making I statements. I think this, I feel this way, I know this, I believe this. So those are what I'm just going to ask for our brief learning community conversation today. We'll look at these disclaimers, additional disclaimers in a moment. But I just want to ask, can everybody agree to those guidelines as stated? You can wave, nod, give a thumbs up. Thanks, Sarah. Sarah is the thumbs up pioneer. Lovely, love that. Thanks, Sarah. So those are our guidelines as we, and thank you for the electronic thumbs up. I love that. Those are our guidelines as we interact with each other. I am now going to go back. And again, for those of you who are letting me know that you're not going to be on camera, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, I am really glad that you're here. Please do not let not being on camera in any way deter you. Anita, you changed your background. It's very Christmassy today. Love that. Welcome back. Good to see you. What I'm going to ask is please don't let not being on camera deter you from unmuting or putting things in the chat if you want to. I will just repeat for folks what I did ask people to think about, and we'll get to that in just a minute. And we're actually going to start with Lauren if she's still willing. But and I'm going to check with her to see if she is, but I'm asking you to identify for yourself. Please don't put it in the chat. You don't need to say anything about it yet because Lauren is going to start us off. But I'm asking everybody to identify a value that's important to you. A value that's important to you. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. Lauren, I'll be checking in with you soon. I'm just going to take care of a couple of other logistics. So a couple of disclaimers, and I'm fairly confident that you can see them now. One is that this conversation, as I said, we're not talking about this conversational strategy within the context of this evidence-based practice exclusively. So it's not intended to be an intensive overview of the practice of motivational interviewing. We are going to touch on it, and to use this strategy, it is in no way required. Also, as I said just a moment ago, the use of this strategy, planting seeds, is what it's now called, used to be called developing discrepancy, is not exclusive to motivational interviewing. And my hope is that that'll be, if there's nothing else, that will be the one thing you take away from this conversation. So we are going to talk a little bit and focus on sort of the circular or stuck conversation dynamic that can happen. And we're going to talk about how you can use this conversational strategy to help guide the conversation forward. And there are two final words after forward. And I'm wondering if anybody in the learning community, and Lauren is saving her voice for when we check in about values, but is there anybody else in the learning community who would be willing to unmute and read in the second bullet the two words that follow the word forward out loud? So is anybody willing to unmute and read those? And if you are, feel free to unmute and go ahead and read them.
When possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Mission accomplished. Thank you for emphasizing that. And the reason, folks, that I want to emphasize that is no conversational strategy, no evidence-based practice is 100% going to work. In fact, and I'm going to reference motivational interviewing for a moment, I once heard Dr. Stephen Rolnick, one of the creators of MI, actually say, you know, most people get motivational interviewing right, quote unquote, That was his word. That's not necessarily the word I would use, but that was his word. Most people generally get the practice of motivational interviewing right 70% of the time. Notice he didn't say 100%. He said 70% of the time. And he concluded that statement with, and that's really great. So I just want to be very clear as we talk about this strategy. It's not a guarantee of anything. And I know you didn't come here expecting a guarantee. I just wanted to be very transparent with you about that. So these are our learning objectives. Maybe Zoom will let me show them. Maybe it won't. I'm clicking on it. Here's one. Okay. Here's the second. And that's a lot of planting seeds. This is what we are going to hopefully be able to touch on within the next less than an hour. It's ambitious. We'll do our best to try and touch on all of these, and we'll take it from there. So before we get to how do you know, I'm going to, in sort of this galactic cloud, I'm going to take the slide down for a minute. Ta-da, Lauren, are you willing to unmute and tell us the value that's important to you? And if you feel you can you tell us a little bit about why this particular value is important to you?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay. I'd say authenticity is important because if you lose yourself in whatever you're doing and people can't know the true you or your true intentions, then you don't really have anything, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. And again, I want to frame that Lauren used the word authenticity. And Lauren, if it's okay, can I ask you a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
So let's say that value was also important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is if I wasn't fulfilling that value, what would I be, if I wasn't living that value, I'll put it that way, what would I be doing potentially? What could I be doing that would be in stark contrast to that value?
I think it could be harming your relationships professionally and personally.
Okay. So harming relationships professionally and personally, and we could even drill down deeper if we had time and get even more specific about some of the behaviors that I might engage in.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Lauren, thank you so much for being willing to start us off. Yeah. Anybody else open to unmuting and sharing the value and, like Lauren, a little bit about why that value is particularly important to you? I get a sense that Brian is considering unmuting, but I don't want to push him. Deborah beat you to the trigger, Brian, but maybe you'll follow Deborah. We'll see. Deborah, the floor is yours.
It would be truth. It'd be honesty. Because without truth and honesty, you have nothing. Without that sort of, connection and knowing that you're open with one another, you have nothing, whether you're within a family or you're with a client or you're at church. Nothing else can exist beyond that. That is honest and truthful and to the core.
Fantastic. And clearly, Deborah, and tell me if this is too simplistic, but clearly the opposite of that would be lying.
Correct. And
Or
sometimes you don't even know you're lying. You're just sometimes you've been so used to being false with yourself that you don't even know what truth is anymore.
Got it. Got it. Deborah, thank you so much. And I just want you to know, Deborah, Anita gave a thumbs up when you said that. So I'm wondering, Anita, if truth was also something that was an important value to you as well. Yeah. Okay. Brian, any thoughts?
Yeah, honesty was one of the ones I was kicking around, but the one that I settled on was kindness. And it's important to me, and I'm certainly capable of being an asshole.
Okay.
But
what happens in our seed planting Vegas stays in our seed planting Vegas.
There you go. Well, I don't think
so Brian is free to leave here and tell everybody that there are times when he can be an asshole.
Yeah,
but John is not welcome to do that. Or I.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Brian.
don't really need to, because all my family, friends, and coworkers that I have good relationships with are already pretty clear about it at times. But I always feel better about myself when I'm not an asshole, when I am kind to others, and I do try to be that way as much as I can. I was thinking sort of jokingly of myself as a recovering Catholic, because that's how I was raised. But it is a part and parcel of who I am. It's like important for me to try to be nice, to be kind to others, and more so as I've gotten healthier to myself as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian. We're going to go to Sumara in just a minute. And Brian, I want to reflect two things that you said, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Okay. One of them is that you made it very clear, and I don't want this to be lost because I really appreciate the fact that Brian articulated this. You made it very clear that you feel better when you're honest, when you're kind. It actually has an impact on you when you're aligned with that value. Did I get that right?
100%.
Okay. Okay. The other thing at this particular moment that I was going to underline escapes me, but I will repeat that part again, that there is a personal feeling you have when there's congruency between your value and your behavior. So Brian, thank you for putting that on the table. And if the second thing comes back to me, I'll put it out there. Excellent. Thank you so much. Sumara, the floor is yours. You were gonna share with us your value and why it's a little bit important to you.
Okay. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And first of all, sorry, I cannot appear on screen. My camera is off. There's some guest. I have guest at my home.
Uh-huh.
So sorry for that. And yes, I stress. I really feel that value is very important. Being a professional, being a mother, being a human being, because without values,
Okay.
you just react to emotions or pressure. With values, you choose how to live. Values help you to decide what's right and what's wrong for you,
Okay.
and they kept you focused when life is confusing or stressful. So they stop you from doing things that you will later regret. So they help you to live with purpose, not just for comfort.
Yeah.
So I think it's help us to decide what is wrong, what is right. It's more important for me.
Yes. Yeah. And they're very specific to us, and they do guide for us what we believe is right or what we believe is wrong. And Samara, as you were saying that, the second thing that I was going to underline about Brian came back to me, which is, Brian, you mentioned your faith, your religious upbringing. And we get our values in a lot of different ways. We get them from our family, we get them from our friends, we get them from our cultural and spiritual and political institutions. And again, this idea that they guide us and we have a reaction to ourselves when we're in alignment with them. Is there one more person that would be willing to unmute and share their value and why it's a little bit important to them? I'm looking to see if anybody is unmuting. Okay. I'm seeing at this particular moment, I'm not seeing any hands and I'm not seeing anybody unmute. Yeah. Oh, David, please go ahead. Sorry. And then Sarah, will go to you as well.
Okay.
David, go right ahead, and then we'll hear from Sarah as well. Sorry, I didn't see it.
I'm probably trying to maybe cheat the question a little bit by having a really big value that I can cram some other values into, but
you're trying to get like a threefer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So health came to me, and I thought of health in a really broad global sense, not just physical health, mental health, but I can think of relationship health and financial health, or I don't know, just really broad. Is this good and healthy for me in a very holistic way?
Okay. And David, can I ask you a quick follow-up question before we go to Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're using health as kind of a big house for multiple things. If you were going to say overall why health is important to you in whatever house, but if health overall is important to you, tell us a little bit about why that is.
I think, I mean, just life, I think it's going to bring good things to me in life. And I probably have a hierarchy of those things, and I would say like relationship health with those that I love, being really important. And so I'm probably going to create more values in here, whether that is time or energy or the limited resources that we all have in life to give towards those things. But I think that living that out is going to just help me pursue the life that I want to live.
Thank you. And David, what you said really linked to what Sumara was saying before about how those values can be guideposts that lead us to the life we want to live. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask everybody, we're going to go to Sarah right now, but I'm going to ask everybody, put a pin in David's health because we're going to return to it. Don't harm it. Just put a gentle pin in it and we're going to return to it. Sarah, the floor is yours.
The value that first came to mind for me was compassion. And as a therapist myself, that's really what I try to keep at the forefront of when I'm meeting with people. As far as why, again, I'm kind of just thinking of the first thing that popped in my head, and it's maybe a little simplistic, but life is hard. Like, life is hard. So if what I can do is have, maybe might be the only compassionate person for that person I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I can provide for them because life outside of here is hard for them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. So again, you're committed to compassion and you're committed to it because you know that people face difficulties. Life is hard. And if you can not make it harder for them, you don't want to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So folks, it's not what's the right word? It's not not intentional, or it's not vague as to why I'm asking you to focus on values, because values can be a powerful platform for the use of this planting seeds. And Tamara adds, values will tell you how to act even when no one is watching. Yes, absolutely, because they're yours. So, and I did see that a pin was, Antonio, I'll give you the floor in just a moment. I just want to acknowledge that a pin was gently placed by Karen into David's health. And we are going to come back to that. I'm going to give the floor to Antonio, and then we're going to come back to David's health for a moment. Please, Antonio, the floor is yours.
Well, for me, Paul, first of all, grand rising to everyone. Hopefully everyone's in a safe space. For me, values help me to, how should I put this? Make the right choice for the right reason, right?
Yeah.
Keeps me in line with what I need to do, not just in my professional status, but in the household of my families and family members. I'm always doing the right thing for the right reason because I know at one time I didn't do that in my life.
Yes.
I would live off my emotions, and I found out that my feelings are not facts. The only facts about my feelings is that I'm feeling. I'm feeling, right? But that doesn't mean through my feelings I make the right choices. Right. So now that I have values and belief systems that I stand on, I also actually execute self-discipline, right? And I'm able to respect and treat others according to how I want to be treated, if that makes sense.
It does. And you're acknowledging that your values, because you've prioritized them, they guide the behaviors that you engage in. Oh, and John is asking, Antonio, if you could elaborate on what grand rising means.
Like saying top of the morning or good morning. I'm out here in California, so for me, it's only 10:30 in the morning.
Fantastic. Thank you, Antonio. And John, wonderful. Thanks for, when you don't, if you have a question, you have a question, right? Fantastic. All right. So we're going to come back to David for just a moment. And we're not really coming back to David. We're going to become David for a moment. So David, we're all you now. And what I'm going to ask for the purposes of that, David didn't realize that that was going to happen during this conversation, I'm sure. What I'm going to ask is just for a moment for all of us to consider, because we are David, we have the value of health. And I'm going to be even more concrete. And David, I'm only going to focus on one house here. And I completely respect your insightful and broad house that you have around it. I'm going to focus on physical health for just a moment. But we're all focusing on that. So I'm going to ask you, since we're all David and our value is in this house of physical health, what do you think our reaction or feelings would be if on a daily basis we smoked a pack of cigarettes a day? Brian is smiling at that. I think Brian may have a thought about it. He may not. But again, this is what I'm asking you to contemplate. We are David. Our value is physical health. And I'll go so far as to say this, and David, I'm just playing the scenario out a little bit more, which is the reason we have that value is because we want to live a long life. And we're smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So my question to you, Davids, is what thoughts are going on in your head when maybe you light up a cigarette and you're reminded of your value? So the floor is open. What thoughts might be going on in your head? How might you feel when you know you have this value? You even take other actions to fulfill this value, and yet you engage in this particular behavior of smoking. And David, since I'm using your name so liberally, I'm going to invite you, if you want to comment first about how you might feel, what you might be thinking in that situation. And we're just guessing here. This is just a scenario I'm setting on the table. And we're going to go to David, and then John, I'll give it to you, okay? Please, David, the floor is yours.
Yeah, like the people in the chat, the first thing that came to mind was just guilt or shame. I would just be feeling a lot of discomfort, and probably just want to avoid even like that thoughts or feelings. So I'd imagine like I would be lighting up my cigarette and smoking that and still trying to distract myself from what I'm doing in that moment, since those things are uncomfortable feelings.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And before, John, I'm going to hand it over to you in just a second. But Lauren, I can't help but read what you wrote, because Lauren wrote, I'm not being authentic. What I want is contradictory to what I do. And of course, that would make sense because that's your value. So you'd feel like you were being inauthentic to yourself. Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. John, the floor is yours.
I was going to quote Brian and say, "Oh man, I'm such an asshole."
Hey,
yeah,
it's perfectly okay to quote good material. Go right ahead.
And I guess the feeling would be self-loathing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of keeps me stuck in this kind of continuum of behavior that leads nowhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. Please finish your thought. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I think I was ending up, and I was just kind of I had rumblings that continued. I was also feeling the, I guess, guilt and shame and inauthenticity as well too. Yeah. I saw that, yeah, disgust that Sarah put in the chat, and cognitive dissonance.
Yep. And that's the whole point, folks. I'm going to go so far, and please tell me if you think I've gone too far, but I'm also going to say cognitive and affective dissonance. Okay? And what I want to throw out for your consideration is planting seeds is creating a degree of intentional cognitive and affective dissonance. It's intentional. It's not meant to be harmful. It does create a certain amount of dissonance, though. Antonio, please, the floor is yours.
So I was someone that smoked at one time in my life.
Okay.
So based on my experience, when I would smoke and I said I was trying to stop, I would get frustrated with myself. I would feel guilty. I would feel ashamed, anxious, stressed, kind of being torn in between two realities. I would buy a pack, smoke one, and then just donate the pack to a random stranger on the street, right? I would feel physically uncomfortable, and then I would have this fear of failing, and I come to realize that fear comes from not having faith, right? If I don't have faith or believe in something or have values in something, then I'm gonna fear something that I don't know nothing about, and fear comes from not knowing what's gonna happen. What if I do this again? What if I fail again? What if I say I want to smoke, but I go buy another pack? It took me like 3, maybe 4 years to truly stand on what I believe in as far as, and it was in a slow process, it wasn't a drive-through process. It was very slow. But I got to it. So in challenging myself in those areas, I found something called how should I put this? Self-discipline.
Mhm.
I found self-discipline, but it didn't happen overnight. And sometimes I would have headaches, irritability. I'd have difficulty concentrating. Uh, Stop smoking also increased my appetite. So there was a lot of mood swings in the process of letting go of cigarettes. But eventually, I was able to come to terms with it.
Thank you, Antonio. So Antonio has really brought us forward into the idea of change, behavior change, and you did also notice that Antonio said it was a slow, long process. And this is where the planting seeds can be helpful because they may not seem to take root at that particular moment, and they can actually have an impact at various times in the process of change. And another thing that Antonio described, and I thought described so well, and Antonio, thanks for making a personal statement there. The thing that you described so well is the ambivalence about it. Part of you wants to follow the value, another part of you wants to keep doing what you're doing. That's normal, folks. That is normal. Sumara, the floor is yours.
Hello. Yes, I wrote in chat book also the cognitive dissonance.
Mhm.
So the cognitive dissonance is a very powerful concept that I discussed with my students while teaching at university. It
Yeah.
is widely used in daily life and occurs even within ourselves
Sure.
when our action do not align with our beliefs or values.
Yeah.
So it is day to day use a very a very it's have very depth itself, the cognitive dissonance. So it is a very powerful concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding that, Sumara. And, I want to link what you just said back to what David said earlier, because David, you started us off with this about how you might feel. And Sumara just repeated the idea that you yourself would be having an internal reaction to it. You'd be having feelings about yourself. When we intentionally employ this strategy, we are we are bringing to light what potentially was in David's head or in his gut, because we're reflecting it back to him. So, Deborah, were you going to say something? I think I saw you on mute, or maybe I'm mistaken. Deborah Edwards? No? Yes? Okay. Just wanted to check.
Unmute, yes. I was gonna say something.
I thought
I
you
was gonna
were. Go ahead.
I was gonna say about planting the seed.
Yeah.
And I know this is out of nowhere, but I have well, I used to be a cop. I am an addict. I obviously lost my job. I became a peer support specialist and then went on to become a SACIT. And I'm very, very new. And I volunteer at the county for the court ordered people who have, you know, either a drug or alcohol conviction driving. And I am, God, it's embarrassing to say, I'm not a huge AA person. I'm surrounded by them. And the reason I'm not is I feel like I call it being put in a box. I don't feel like addiction or recovery or anyone's journey should ever be put in a box. And I'm sitting next to the same guy every week. Just all he cares about is how many meetings did you go to? I, that's great. And that's good to know. But let's go beyond that. And there's so much more than AA. There's Celebrate Recovery. There's things online. And I don't know, it's like, am I going to end up quitting? Or I don't know how to break that, because it seems like everybody on the staff are these very hardcore, staunch like one way of thinking. And I'm not a one way. I'm like, whatever way works for you and keeps you sober, happy, safe, sane, roll, man. Just roll with it. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And I'm struggling. I'm just like, do I continue with them? Do I move on? I thought about talking to the lady who leads the whole thing, and like, you know, they invite you. Do you want to come join like the leaders of the I'm like, I don't think they want me there. I don't think you'd want me there, because you're going to hear some truth. I don't know if you're ready to hear, or that you want to hear. And I'm just like confused, because I want to do good things and I don't know if I'm doing the best thing I can do there.
Yeah.
As far as volunteering, I'm saying, you know, like
Yeah,
giving my
understood.
time.
Understood. So you're volunteering in a place that doesn't honor or isn't open to the same values that you have. Your values are that whatever journey works for that person, as long as they're sane, they like the quality of their life, they're not harming themselves or harming anybody else, whatever works for them works for them. You're committed more to that than carrying a particular party line.
Right.
And you're working for an organization that has a party line.
Correct. And a party line makes sense. And we all go by the, you know, the AA and the 12 step and all, and that's great. But I had a guy stand up and I'm like, keep going, keep going, keep going. Because the guy next to me is like old school, you know? And he's like, sir, I don't go to AA anymore. And this guy just kept pounding. And I'm like, speak up, dude, speak up. And he's like, sir, I work at Rogers, which is like an addiction center. He says, I deal with recovery every day, helping people. He said, my choice is meditation and working out. And he said, I have my plan. And he says, I recommend AA to people. He says, but that's not my party line, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on a different path. And I think that should be acceptable no matter where we are. Let people choose if it works, and if they're healthy, choose that for themselves.
Understandably. And again, you're talking, Deborah, about a misalignment between values and programmatic sort of lines or expectations. And I'm going to bring this slightly back to that same type of, I'm going to use the word storm or dynamic going on internally within a person. And what this strategy is attempting to do is to invite that person to wrestle with that conflict and to really focus on that conflict and figuring out, how do I stay true to my value? What is the action? What are the things that I need to do? because what you're doing when you use this strategy is you're illuminating the person's value and you're illuminating what's contradictory to it with no judgment to either.
Correct.
So just keeping that in mind, I'm going to share my slides again.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome, Deborah. Thank you. And thanks for kind of expanding this out to a larger level. Sort of, there's micro, meso, and then an even larger level. So keeping that in mind. I'm going to share my screen again. And I think we've kind of determined that the conversation can become circular or stuck when somebody is committed to doing what they're doing and still kind of expressing a value that they may have or ignoring the value that they may have. And my understanding is from what I've experienced and what I've been told, that people often get into these circular conversations that feel like they're not going anywhere. Antonio mentioned earlier the presence of ambivalence, which is normal. It's normal to feel multiple ways about doing things, behaving in a way that's contradictory to what we may determine is important, i.e., like Lauren said, being authentic. And then kind of catching ourselves in a situation where we've actually been inauthentic or we realize we've been inauthentic. So keeping in mind that that kind of ambivalence about it is common, it's normal, it's human, and it can be part of somebody's change process. It's not a bad thing. And it's not the same thing as resistance. So just be very clear about that ambivalence around this conflict is actually a benefit. Now, I want to underline that this strategy, planting seeds, doesn't always flower or result in behavior change. The sheer fact, though, the sheer experience that the person hears their value, which maybe has gone a little bit silent for them, but they hear that equally connected to what they're doing that's contrary to that value, raises their awareness. And again, I've heard people use the phrase having a built-in forgetter, meaning that if you don't want to hold on to something, it can be very easy to forget it. And the beauty of this particular strategy is the person at a time that they least expect it may remember the seeds or the seed that you planted, which could help them to actually move forward. So being very clear, though, this strategy can be used in situations outside of the practice of motivational interviewing, but being very clear that motivational interviewing is this client-centered conversation between two partners working together that is focused on a specific behavioral change goal that the person feels ambivalent about, and that we are in, as the worker, as the person having the conversation, we are guiding that conversation to focus on two very specific things. One is helping them to look at both sides of their ambivalence, why they want to, why they don't want to. And that could be multiple things. Second, if we actually have the opportunity to practice motivational interviewing and use this strategy, and we may not, they don't always go together. Sometimes we can't strengthen or identify that person's motivations. It doesn't mean we still can't plant the seeds. So this strategy, again, this is maybe the 8th time I've said it, does not require you to be doing the practice of motivational interviewing. It's simply a conversational strategy where you can actually interact with this person in an MI-spirited way and be exploring their values, what's important to them, and the contrast of what they may be doing that is getting in the way of what's important to them. So again, we are intentionally, by planting these seeds, inviting reflection and possible reconciliation between the value and what the person is doing. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment because I am aware of the time. And I want to ask a question, and I'm inviting your input into this. And we're going to go back to all of us being David just for a moment. We said that the value was health. The behavior we were engaging in is we were smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. If we were going to plant seeds about that, and let's just say for the purposes of this, I'm David right now, just me. If we were going to plant seeds about that, what might you say to me? And I'm going to give you the cue line that David says, because that may help. You know, this is getting really expensive. And I also find that when I'm trying to go up the stairs of our 5-floor walk up that has no elevator, it's getting harder and harder for me to do that. So that's what David just said. We know from prior conversations with him and from other things he's talked about, health is important to him. So my question to you is if you were going to plant seeds there, what would you say to David? And we'll see if anybody has any thoughts or response that they might share. What would you say to David? And I'm watching the chat. I'm seeing if anybody wants to unmute. And you can just say it to me because I'm David now. And by the way, David is my middle name. Go ahead, Deborah. What would you say to me?
Let's say, David, why don't you give it just 1 week? 1 week, and you just not smoke and see how you feel. See if you breathe easier, if you feel better, if you feel lighter, if you feel healthier. I think, from there, you might find that, like you said, the seeds can grow and it can go on further from there, and you might find it a permanent decision.
Okay. So let me be very clear, because Deborah, we're going to put like practice tags on whatever people kind of offer.
Yep.
What you just offered was your suggestion of what I should do.
Correct. That is true. That's
So
true.
I just want to be very clear about that. And that is different than planting seeds.
Correct. Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
And thanks for starting us off.
Okay. Well, you learn me, school me. I'm here.
Yeah. Any thoughts, folks? What would you say to me? What would you say to David? And Deborah, thanks for starting us off. Who is that talking?
Stephanie.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I would probably say, oh, wow. So it sounds like the financial aspect of smoking is really kind of getting in the way of your life and your bills and how you're living your life financially, something like that.
Okay. And Stephanie, just say it to me the way you'd say it.
That's how I would say it.
Okay. Just say it to me again as a sentence. Yeah.
I would say, oh, wow. So it sounds like the financial piece of smoking is a burden for you, that it's really, the money that you spend on cigarettes and on smoking is maybe stopping you from doing other things or achieving other financial goals, something like that.
Fantastic. So what Stephanie just demonstrated was a simple reflection.
Yeah.
And very simply and clearly done using the content that David, presented. Thanks, Stephanie. Brian, what would you say? P.S. The beauty of this, folks, is there's no one correct answer. The thing I want you to take away, though, is how can we link the value to what the client has just presented? Go ahead, Brian. What would you say to me? And just say it to me as if I'm the person.
Are you making a connection between the smoking and having a hard time walking the stairs?
Okay, so Brian, and we're putting practice tags on it. Brian just asked a closed-ended question. And P.S., closed-ended questions are not bad or good. They're simply a kind of question which elicits a yes or no answer. I could say yes to that question. I could say no to that question. Anybody else want to throw out an idea? I'm going to give a hint.
What about
And I'm going to, yeah, hold on just a minute, Casey. I'm going to type a word in the chat for you to consider. This is for everybody to consider. There's the word. Go ahead, Chasey.
I maybe something along the lines of it seems like your health is declining with being more difficult going up the stairs and stuff. What do you think is causing it?
Okay. An open-ended question to potentially explore. Again, could potentially work. I'm going to try and link the two. Okay. Go ahead, Sarah. I see you're unmuted. Before I say another word, I'm going to hand it over to you. Go ahead.
I kind of want to call out Samara's response in the chat mainly because it was pretty similar to what I was going to say, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I would have kind of reflected back the health and that, like she said, climbing stairs is really hard right now. And I would maybe add something to that, maybe depending on what I know about him, it sounds like you go up and down your stairs a lot during the day, and that would be tough to have, it sounds like that is taking a toll on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that would be considered a double-sided reflection. And I'm only going to give one additional point of adjustment to consider, which is, and again, there's no one right way to do this, but we're planting the seeds. Walking up the stairs has become really difficult, and smoking is expensive. And you've also said that, having good physical health is important and a goal for you. The only adjustment there is I put the health part last. That matters because it's what they hear last. So I used Stephanie's reflection and I linked it with David's value. Ultimately, developing discrepancy is our verbal way to underline that. As I think about this conversation, folks, I'm really feeling that we would benefit from there possibly being a part 2 to this conversation. So I'm going to think about that and invite you to consider, once I develop that, if you might want to rejoin for a part 2, and we could use it as kind of a practice lab. Having said that, I want to thank you all for your participation. I'm going to share the QR code, and I'm going to invite you to click on the live link. If for whatever reason you can't use the QR code or the live link, don't worry, we will email you the live link in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm hopeful that we will be together again. And David, thank you so much for allowing us to use your example.